The Star Cup is traditionally the third Nitro Cup in Mario Kart games, and is usually a little bit harder than the Flower Cup. We've ranked every Mushroom and Flower Cup, so now we will rank every Star Cup in Mario Kart from worst to best. As always, these are purely my opinions and are completely subjective, so if you disagree with anything on the list, then let me know in the comments, or just post your full rankings there too. Also, this was an extremely hard ranking to make, because I feel like the top 4 are all really good, so just know they're all pretty close to each other. But without further ado, here's every Star Cup from worst to best. You guys should know the drill by now. Super Mario Kart is going to be dead last like always, but there is at least a little variety in this one. Koopa Beach 1, Choco Island 2, Vanilla Lake 1, Bowser Castle 3, and Mario Circuit 4 is the lineup, so there's at least 2 original tracks in this one, but Vanilla Lake 1 is a pretty terrible course, so that kind of nullifies it. So yeah, once again a lackluster cut from Super Mario Kart, but at least the other 7 are at least solid. Super Circuit comes in at number 7, and a big reason is it starts with Snowland, which gives me a headache to play, so I kinda hate it. Now Ribbon Road is arguably the best course in the whole game, and is a ton of fun with all the jumping you can do, but then we're back to a bad track in Yoshi Desert, which is not fun in any way, and the cup is wrapped up with Bowser Castle 3, which is actually a solid Bowser Castle, and I like it a lot in Mario Kart Wii, but overall this cup is hard carried by Ribbon Road, which is just not enough for me to put it any higher. Mario Kart 64 is going to land at number 6, and this one is a bit underwhelming for a Star Cup. Wario Stadium is a pretty terrible track in my opinion. It's extremely long, boring, and just feels like a chore to play. It's like Rainbow Road, but at least that has really good music and stuff to look at. I actually like Sherbet Land though, as it's my most underrated track for this game, and I have a video for that if you're interested, but just because I think it's underrated doesn't mean that I think it's great, because it's really not, it's just decent. Royal Raceway really only has one thing going for it, and that of course is being able to drive up to Peach's Castle from Super Mario 64. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's nothing special, and certain parts of the course can be very frustrating due to this game's terrible physics. But at least Bowser's Castle is here, because it is arguably the best course in the game, and is the only reason this cup isn't below Super Circuit. For a Bowser's Castle made in 1996, this is really good. A good amount of obstacles, challenging but still fun turns, and just overall good Bowser Castle vibes. But yeah, the Star Cup isn't great. Mario Kart 7 Star Cup is kind of underwhelming as well, but is much better than 64's. Piranha Plant Slide is one of my favorites in this game. It's a great concept, and while it's not exactly a classic like Coconut Mall or DK Mountain, you know, tracks that come to mind when you think of playing Mario Kart, but I still like it a lot. Wario Shipyard is kind of the same thing for me. Cool idea, solid track, but it just feels like there's something missing in it. I think one reason is the music is just kind of forgettable. Now Neo Bowser City is one that I have never cared for. It's not terrible, but I never look forward to it. I just don't care for the futuristic city theme. It feels out of place in a Mario Kart. And the layout is not great either. Plus there's those rain puddles at the end that make you spin out, and those are just annoying, so yeah, not a fan of this one. But this cup ends on a good note with Maku Woohoo, which is a lot like Woohoo Loop since it's also on Woohoo Island. This course is pretty good, the gliding section at the end is really fun, and the sunset looks beautiful, but I do like Woohoo Loop a little bit better. Not super sure why, to be honest, but I still like this one a lot. So this Star Cup is certainly not anything groundbreaking, but it's solid, and it's in a whole nother tier when compared to Mario Kart 64, but it's at 5 for a reason, and that's because these next 4 are all fantastic. DS comes in at number 4, which is very surprising to me because I absolutely love this Star Cup, which should tell you how incredible the top 3 Star Cups are, but we'll get to those next. DK Pass is an incredibly underrated winter track and is one of my favorites in DS. The music, snow, and snowballs make for a fun time, and it just gives me lots of nostalgia and warm feelings when I play it. Tick Tock Clock is a very unique one based on the level in Mario 64, and it's also just a fun track even if you have never played Mario 64. You're basically inside of a clock and you get to race on gears and avoid giant clock hands. It's a great concept and was executed very well. Interestingly, DS's Mario Circuit is actually in its Star Cup instead of the usual Flower Cup, which is why this is not in the top 3. Now don't get me wrong, this Mario Circuit is pretty solid, but it's still nothing special and is nothing compared to the other 3 courses in this cup. Airship Fortress is the perfect ending to a Star Cup, and a lot of people think this is the best track in the game. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's probably top 3, and the theme and obstacles are why. It's based on the airships from Mario Bros. 3 and has you avoiding things like bullet bills, moles, and even lasers. Plus you get shot out of a cannon, which is always a nice touch. But yeah, this cup is pretty great, but that should tell you how good the next 3 are. Double Dash has a really good Star Cup, and I feel bad I couldn't put it higher, but the fact that it starts out with Sherbet Land is not great. The cool thing about Double Dash is that it doesn't have any bad tracks in my opinion, but Sherbet Land is not a good track, mostly due to how annoying it is to play with the slipperiness. The music and aesthetics are great, but the gameplay just leaves a lot to be desired. Thankfully, Mushroom City is actually a good track. It's a traffic track, but it's a unique one because it has so many different paths and detours you can take, and that helps keep the track refreshing to play every time. And of course there's cars to avoid for some difficulty. If you know me, then you know I love Yoshi Circuit, specifically the original version, because this one actually has both shortcuts in it. But yeah, you know the drill with this one by now. It's shaped like Yoshi, has great shortcuts, and is just really fun to play. And finally we have a fan favorite in DK Mountain. Now I will say I don't like this one quite as much as a lot of people, but it's still a great course. You get shot out of a cannon onto the top of a mountain, and hectically make your way down while avoiding boulders and of course the other racers. The shortcut at the end can be a little frustrating to do, especially if you're not used to it, but other than that, this track is a blast. And we have finally seen it happen. After 3 ranking videos, Mario Kart Wii is not number 1, which is a little surprising because I kind of thought it would be number 1 for all the Nitro Cups, but the more I looked at it, the more I knew I had to put it at 2 instead this time. But just because it's not number 1 doesn't mean it isn't great. So let's see what tracks this Star Cup has, and it's Daisy Circuit. Yeah, not the best start. Okay, so Daisy Circuit isn't terrible or anything, it's just so average. You'd think with the fun and creative tracks this game is filled with that the Star Cup would start out more exciting, but no, we get Daisy Circuit. But let's move on to an amazing track in Koopa Cape, which I have always loved, specifically the underwater section. It still impresses me to this day, and the part where you ride in the stream is cool too. Just an incredibly enjoyable course. And then we follow that up with another amazing one in Maple Tree Way. This one has you driving on trees, being shot out of a cannon, avoiding wigglers, and it just has an overall cozy vibe to it. I don't think I've heard anyone ever say they don't like Maple Tree Way. Grumble Volcano isn't as good as the last 2, but it still is an exciting race. I mean, you're in a volcano. The really neat part is that certain pieces of the course will fall into the lava as the race progresses, making each lap a little more challenging. It's a lot less peaceful than Maple Tree Way, but it's a nice change of pace and a great way to end this Star Cup. So Wii has finally been dethroned for once, so that means we have a new number 1, Mario Kart 8. I told you guys in the Flower Cup ranking that this game would redeem itself for its underwhelming Flower Cup, and it did exactly that. We start out with one of my personal favorites in Sunshine Airport, which I feel is kind of a sequel to Coconut Mall. You're driving through an airport, through planes, and even with the planes at one point. I do kind of wish you were inside the airport itself a little more, but it's still an amazing course. Dolphin Shoals is no slouch either, and this is one of the best underwater tracks in my opinion. The best part has to be the music because it changes depending on when you're underwater versus when you're not. And when you emerge from the underwater cave and that saxophone hits you, man, it's amazing. Electrodrome is my least favorite track here, but it's still pretty good. All the lights and loud music make it feel like you're finally at one of those parties you could never get invited to. The layout itself isn't anything crazy, but the atmosphere makes up for it and then some. And finally, we have the best track in 8, in my opinion, Mount Wario, which is nothing short of a grand adventure. You start out in a huge helicopter thing, and off you go down an enormous mountain, through a cave, a dam, a forest, and eventually down a ski slope, until you're finally at the finish line. And this of course is a sectioned track, thankfully, or it would take so long. But yeah, it's amazing and I have loved it from the first time I ever played it. And it's a big reason why I had no other choice but to put Mario Kart 8 at number 1. And that was every Star Cup ranked. Let me know what your ranking is and what you would change. And let me know if you agree with everything as well. Depending on how well this video does, I may try to get the Special Cup ranking out pretty quickly, so we'll have all the Nitro Cups, and then I may even do the Retro Cups as well. So if you want to see the Special Cup ranking, give this video a like, and subscribe so you don't miss any more rankings or other kinds of videos, because I don't just do Mario Kart rankings. Thanks everyone for watching, and have a great day.